Hello, goblins and ghouls. So, I'm going to discuss some of the famous people who died in the year 2011 as part of my year by year flashback series. So, okay, on January 4th, Jerry Rafferty died. He's apparently a Scottish musician, which I actually didn't know, but I do know that he was instrumental in songs like Baker Street and Stuck in the Middle with You by the Steelers Wheel. And like Baker Street, that has a really cool saxophone line. I know that song's not everybody's cup of tea, but that's actually I've always liked that kind of song, or that particular song, I should say. And Stuck in the Middle with You it's a catchy song. And on January 29th, Milton Babbitt died. He was an American composer. Now, I don't know much about him, but I actually do have an album or two that has something of his on it. It's like he did some weird kind of he was kind of avant-garde stuff, I guess. Anyway, March 8th, I guess nobody I care about died in February. But anyway, March 8th, we lost Mike Starr, who was the original bassist in Alice in Chains. And if you look at his picture, he wasn't a bad looking dude. I'm comfortable enough in my sexuality to admit when another male human being is attractive. I'm all right with admitting that. He wasn't a bad looking dude. And also, he was a good bass player. Alice in Chains are a classic rock band, as far as I'm concerned. And, iconic grunge band or whatever. And on March 23rd, Elizabeth Taylor, obviously famous actress, known for Gone with the Wind and for selling jewelry and, having unique eyes, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, she died at that time. Not really that familiar with her work, actually. I've never even seen Gone with the Wind. But apparently it was a big deal. Also, I've already mentioned the death of Osama bin Laden on May 2nd. So I'm not going to really, go that much into detail about him. But, he was obviously the Saudi-born leader of Al-Qaeda and an avid golf pro. No, just kidding. He did not do very well at golf, as far as I know. In fact, I've heard that he, for some time, was on a dialysis machine. And oddly enough, he was found in Pakistan, which is supposed to be like our ally, which is kind of strange. Makes you think. Anyway, on May 20th, Randy Savage died. Now, he's obviously, like, even if you don't like wrestling, well, like, I'm not a huge fan of wrestling, but certain personalities in wrestling, I think, are kind of instantly likable. There's just something about them. They're kind of stupid and goofy, but definitely likable. And Randy Savage definitely, he definitely qualifies as, one of those classic wrestlers. Back in the WWF before it became the WWE or whatever it's being called nowadays. On May 27th of 2011, we lost Gil Scott-Heron, the American poet and musician. I'm not that familiar with his work either, but, there's that one song that he was pretty prominent for, The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. You've probably heard that somewhere by now. I know it's even in an episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and it's like a political song. Yet at the same time, I think it kind of hits you. It's more intense than just like some empty political rhetoric. It's like an actual poem, as far as I'm concerned. That just happens to have an opinion. And we also lost Jack Kevorkian on June 3rd. He was an American euthanasia advocate. Also, quite commonly called Dr. Death. And I've gone back and forth, on my opinions of Jack Kevorkian. On the one hand, yes, I definitely agree that we should have sympathy and put people out of their misery in something, and that it should be legal to be able to do that. But I mean, part of me, is I feel kind of weird about somebody who like goes around doing that for a living. You know what I mean? It's just, I mean, I understand it. I'm not going to really condemn it, but it's it's a little iffy as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, on June 23rd, we lost Peter Falk, Falk. Um, really, he's a famous actor, but here's how pathetic I am. The only thing I really recognize him from was he was the grandfather and the narrator from the movie Princess Bride. That's just how pathetic my knowledge of films are. Apparently he was, doing other stuff too. On July 8th, Betty Ford died, obviously First Lady of Gerald Ford. And it says here she was American feminist, activist, philanthropist, and First Lady. And really what I know her for is I always hear the term Betty Ford Clinic, here and there. Well, not always, but I've heard it throughout my life at various times. Somebody will mention the Betty Ford Clinic. Anyway, moving on October 5th of 2011, Steve Jobs died, obviously computer entrepreneur. Yeah. He was kind of made into almost like a demigod toward the end. I never really like bowed down to him, honestly. In fact, that kind of freaked me out a little bit, how people were like getting so crazy about how great he was. And yeah, he was just an influential guy, successful. Let's not blow that out of proportion here. Anyway, on October 20th, Muammar Gaddafi died, obviously a Libyan dictator. And I remember even like the mainstream media was showing the pictures of him actually being, attacked or killed or whatever, and it was a little unexpected. I mean, I'm not really that squeamish, but when you don't normally see that kind of thing in mainstream news, it kind of makes it seem stranger. And obviously they show that for a reason. Maybe to send a message to other countries that, look, this is what can happen to you if we don't like you, or if people don't like you. And that's my take on it anyway. And on November 7th, Joe Frazier, famous American boxer, died. Don't really know that much about him or about boxing in general. I guess I'm kind of ignorant about a lot of things. But I do know he was a very famous boxer. I've heard his name mentioned numerous times throughout my life. And, yeah. November 8th, Heavy D, the rapper, died. I've heard of Heavy D and the Boys, definitely. And, can't really name any of their songs because I'm not really that much into rap. But definitely recognize the name. And on November 29th, Patrice O'Neal, American comedian, died. I've definitely seen him doing the Comedy Central roasts, and he could definitely be a funny guy. I think he had diabetes or something, if I recall correctly, and that's kind of what ultimately did him in. But he was definitely influential while he was still here. And yeah. December 15th, Christopher Hitchens, the British-American writer, and obviously kind of a controversial figure because, well, he did say a couple things that I didn't like, but even aside from that sort of thing, he was also a very outspoken atheist and very critical of religion. which I didn't tend to disagree with because I'm an atheist myself, and also I kind of think with the way he said things, he actually wasn't as hostile as he was made out to be. It's just he had like a stern opinion, and I don't think he was a villainous figure. I just didn't always agree with him, especially when he supported the war in Iraq and stuff like that. Like I thought that was just stupid, frankly. That definitely took him down a few notches, in my opinion. And really, like a lot of his arguments for that were a little bit naive, almost childlike, I would say. And other than that, though, he seemed like he was an intelligent guy, but definitely on a few occasions, not so much. Anyway, we've got one of the big ones here, and in December 2011, specifically December 17th, Kim Jong-il, the so-called supreme leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And yes, what can you really say about Kim Jong-il? I mean, the one way or the other, he was something else. Unique dictator in many ways. And supposedly, I mean, from what I've heard, he was also really big into Hollywood movies, which is strange because he's supposed to be this big communist leader, so much against America and the class system and all that. Yet he was supporting Hollywood, apparently to a larger degree. He was I mean he wasn't funding it, but definitely was apparently a big fan of action movies. Or I think there was even like a North Korea monster movie that was created. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like Godzilla kind of thing, and it's apparently a blast to watch it. I've heard, but also like one last thing about Kim Jong Il is that South Park really did a great number of things about him while he was still alive. Obviously, terrible person, but you almost can't hate him in a weird way. Like he's just so bizarre that like even if I don't know, I'm just at a loss for words. He's just such an iconic and bizarre figure, and really shouldn't have existed. But once he did, he definitely left his mark, and I don't think the history books will ever forget the craziness that was Kim Jong Il. Well, anyway, those are the notable deaths, at least according to me, for the year 2011. And yeah, that about covers it. Let's move on to a new year next time.